Right out of Dante's Inferno, it's the IGN Digigods. Please welcome two cracked units, outwitted and outfought by some Earth robot, and an antique from storage, Wade Major and Mark Kaiser.
Oh my goodness, the references the listeners send in. Corey, who sent that one in for us? Please.
That was brought to you by John Lusty. Lusty as in, I'm lusty for what's coming out of Dante's Inferno.
No.
If you know what I mean.
No.
I hope you don't.
No, Corey.
I don't.
Oh, Corey.
Oh, Corey.
I love having conversations with pre-recorded dialogue.
You're not supposed to admit that. Nobody knows that. Oh, everybody knows that.
It's fun stuff.
They're tired of the charade. They want you to just say it. Wait, you know what annoys me?
What annoys you?
When I rent a movie on Netflix, and I realize I've seen it already, but I forgot. You're probably saying, what is this movie that I rented already and had already seen?
Star Wars?
No, exactly. It is the Kurosawa film, The Bad Sleep Well.
I'm sorry.
I already seen it.
Yeah.
I forgot. That's all I got.
That's all you got. Okay.
All I know, Wade, is we are talking today about the greatest movie ever made.
Which is Star Wars?
No, Wade. No. You know what I'm talking about.
I do?
The movie that you will not give me.
Oh.
Even though you said you might have two, but I bet you don't.
The movie that I saw that I took my mother to see on opening day.
Really?
Yeah, I did. And she loved it. She loved it. You know what she loved most?
What?
She loved the fact... everyone's going to be like, what? What kind of mom did you have? She loved the fact that Isaac Hayes had adorned his Cadillac with chandeliers.
Damn right.
Yeah.
He's Duke of New York.
She liked that.
It's the best.
She really dug that. Anybody who knows what we're talking about, you know what's coming.
You know it, man. We've been waiting forever for this.
Well, it's been on Blu-ray before, but it was like a lame, bare bones version.
Lame.
It was lame.
I didn't even buy it. You know what? I kept my DVD for this moment when finally my life would be complete.
Well, we got a lot of classic films, a lot of catalog titles this week. Tons of stuff from Kino and stuff from Olive and stuff from Shout Factory. So we got a lot of that stuff to get to. But we're going to start with new movies or newish movies because there's like nothing. We got 5 newish movies. So I'll knock 2 of these out real quickly. The first one is Everly with Salma Hayek, which came out not too long ago, actually, like a month and a half ago, because I talked about this on the radio. Anyway, it's on Blu-ray. And here's the thing. Director Joe Lynch, this is a guy who's done some indie stuff, and he's really using this film as a resume piece. The whole movie, essentially, like 98% of the movie takes place in one apartment. And the idea is that Everly, played by Salma Hayek, is a woman who became... She entered this life of prostitution for this Japanese yakuza / pimp / just all around horrible person, and has not seen her daughter in years, and now she's decided to basically she's going to get out, and he's not going to let her. So it's Salma Hayek essentially doing everything she can to use every gun and every weapon at her disposal to blow her way out of this building to be able to see her daughter again. Now, the film cheats in a few ways because the daughter eventually comes to her with her mom, and there are a lot of these roundabout cheats that indie movies often do to try to excuse the fact that you never leave the single location. But that said, there's a lot of production value here, a lot of pyrotechnics, it gets ridiculous at the end. It just goes completely over the top cartoonish. But what you're looking at here is a bargain basement version of Kill Bill. They basically want to do a Kill Bill film without leaving this one location, this one soundstage. And in that regard, I give him props. I mean, I'm not going to say this is a great movie or recommend that anybody see it, but I'm impressed with what Joe Lynch did, given all the parameters and what he had to work with and how he shot it and how he put it together. Good job. So let's see what else you do when somebody hands you a bigger film. I think you deserve it, Joe. So bravo to you. This has a few special features on it. It's commentary. Joe gives you a little insight into how he put the thing together, along with his editor and producer. And then there's a technical feature commentary, also with Joe Lynch and his cinematographer, and a music video, and that's pretty much it. So, but Everly with Salma Hayek, not bad. It's got its issues, but it's not bad. It's kind of grown on me with time. I think I like it more now than when I reviewed it on NPR. John Cryer in Hit by Lightning, along with Will Sasso and Stephanie Sostak, I guess is how you pronounce her name. Mark, here's my number one problem with movies like this. Tell me that that cover art of him in bed between the two of them with the gun in his hand,
just horribly photoshopped
to hell, isn't it?
Horrible.
Like that image does not appear in the movie. What? That is an image that they took a frame from the movie and then they photoshopped.
But it's like
the gun in it.
But look, there's at least seven things going on. Which, by the way, you can't see because
there are like 5 different elements from the movie that are all put together very awkwardly in one Photoshop.
There's John Cryer's head, but not John Cryer's body, and not John Cryer's arm holding the gun. There's the woman, not her body, not her arm. And there's Will Sasso, who looks like he's not even laying in that bed. They positioned him to look like he was laying in the bed. So essentially, I guess, you know what? John Cryer, I think, has a relationship with Ricky Blitt. Ricky Blitt might have written for Family Guy. It sounds familiar. Yeah. I think the reason why Cryer's in this is because of Ricky Blitt. I'm going to guess.
Okay.
Otherwise, anyway. Cryer does not want for money.
No, he doesn't. I mean, it's ultimately this has nothing to do with the film. This image that is completely misleading. It makes you think it's some kind of a bedroom farce or something wacky. Anyway, it's really not. It's just a sweet little romantic comedy with John Cryer basically doing what he does, which is kind of those insecure, nerdy guys who just want to find love, and. He finds the woman, but then things aren't quite as they seem. Yada yada. Fill in the second and the third act as you will. So it's how do you turn a horrible predicament into the love of your life? It's cutish, but nothing special. If you're a John Cryer fan. And then Frank Whaley, man, not a bad director. Turns out, did a little indie film called Like Sunday, Like Rain. Which is an interesting little quirky movie with some really good performances in it, particularly Deborah Messing and Leighton Meester, who both do really, really good work here. And it's about a 12-year-old cello prodigy and his very unusual life, and how it's the individual who sort of rescues him from obscurity and alienation, and how that friendship evolves. And I will tell you nothing further, but it could go into some places where you don't want it to go, and it could be handled much more awkwardly, but Frank Whaley really shows some chops in the way he handles it. This is released by Monterey. It is not getting a terribly wide release, but you should try to dig it up. Frank Whaley, a good actor, and turns out not a bad director. Like Sunday, Like Rain.
AV Club had an interesting interview with Frank Whaley. Pretty long, too.
Yeah.
He talked about working with Sam Jackson, because Whaley was the guy sitting in the chair in the apartment when Sam Jackson gave that famous Ezekiel speech in Pulp Fiction.
That's right.
So he talked about working with him there, and he talked about being yelled at by Oliver Stone for not being prepared. And it's a cool little interview. Sweet. I would definitely check that out. What I would not check out is Sweet Lorraine, which is a film starring Tatum O'Neal. Now, look, I get that Tatum O'Neal she disappeared for years, and she's getting older now, although she's still very beautiful. But she doesn't have to do stuff like this.
No, she doesn't.
Come on, man. I mean, she's like, what was she won an Oscar?
I know.
Stop that.
She was married to John McEnroe, for crying out loud.
Married to John McEnroe, for crying out loud. Anyway, it all revolves around a mayoral campaign in New Jersey. And Tatum O'Neal is married to a minister, a Methodist minister, and she's got this interesting past that sort of gets dredged up and becomes part of this mayoral race. A couple funny lines, very low budget. Not that it doesn't really have much to say necessarily about the state of politics today. It's just a little nothing of a comedy that I just cannot recommend. And I really wish if Tatum O'Neal wants to act again, which of course we would all applaud, that she should go get herself an agent or a better agent and end up with something better than Sweet Lorraine.
All right, Mark, we're going to get into our classic films now. We got to really
Escape from New York.
We got to really roll through these.
Escape from New York. That's a classic.
Well, you know what? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe. Is there another movie that has Isaac Hayes driving a Cadillac that has chandeliers on it?
Let me think.
Okay. Well, while you're thinking, I'm going to first talk about some other Shout Factory releases this week. These are some double features from the Scream Factory line, Carrie and the Rage Carrie 2. This is not the original Carrie, the Brian De Palma film with Sissy Spacek. This is a 2002 film that starred Angela Bettis. And a lot of you may not even have known this existed. And this is what's weird, is that Carrie 2 was made in 1999, before this version of Carrie. So you have the sequel the 99 sequel to the De Palma Carrie, along with a remake of the original, and it's kind of a weird double feature. But it's got a few extras. Kat Shea does an audio commentary here, and there's an alternate ending. And the Carrie itself has an audio commentary with director David Carson. I mean, it is what it is. So if that appeals to you, I guess keep away from me. I love this, Mark. I absolutely love this. I can't tell you how happy I am. Do you know how excited I am that we have a double feature of Breakin and Breakin 2 Electric Boogaloo? Electric Boogaloo, Breakin 2 Electric Boogaloo, the most oft-made fun and mocked movie title in history, is finally on Blu-ray.
It really is true.
Oh, my God.
In fact, they actually named a documentary Electric Boogaloo.
Yes.
Let me try that again.
Yes.
Don't stop the recording.
No.
A documentary about Golan and Globus, the producers of Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yes.
The documentary about them that came out last year was called Electric Boogaloo.
I'm going to tell you another funny story. So when Matt Reeves was at USC, right, after he'd made a couple of films that starred yours truly, he decided to make, he went and made a what they call it, the 310, I think it is, at USC. Anyway, it's a more substantial film. I was not in that one, but it was called Breakin, okay, as in break in. It's about a guy who breaks in. It's still a great film. I hope Matt gets it out on DVD at some point. It was an awful lot of fun to shoot, too. Shot it in his mom's house. And it was about a guy who is a burglar, and he breaks into a house where it turns out the mayor's daughter has been kidnapped by this horrible, huge, just nasty person who lives there. And so he becomes, he's the burglar who winds up becoming, right, the hero. And make a long story short, the end of it, Matt put a little hilarious little tag at the end, coming soon. Breakin 2 Electric Boogaloo, and he misspelled Boogaloo. And I remember we just could not get over. Like, how do you misspell Boogaloo? That's like but it didn't matter. It was still a funny joke. So anyway, Breakin 2 Electric Boogaloo, and I actually worked as an usher at this theater at the National when this thing opened. And man, that was just the weirdest thing. I saw this movie so many times. Lucinda Dickey cannot dance, but you know what? Shabadoo, man. There's a guy named Shabadoo, and he's pretty fun. So that's all I can say. Anyway, these guys, these two movies were just a weird phenomenon at the time. And then the last double feature from Shout Factory is Eddie and the Cruisers and Eddie and the Cruisers 2, Eddie Lives. What I love about the sequel is it takes all the mystery out of the previous film. If you look at this and you go, wow, Eddie and the Cruisers and then Eddie and the Cruisers 2, Eddie Lives, and you watch Eddie and the Cruisers first, the fact that you know there's a sequel called Eddie and the Cruisers 2, Eddie Lives, makes the first film utterly pointless.
But the first movie was a good movie. The first was a good movie.
It was an okay film. It was all right.
It was a legit film.
It was a legit film. It put Michael Pare on the map, and it had some good music, and it really was kind of a surprise hit at the time. So apart from the fact that they put that just completely unnecessary sequel on here, hey, Eddie and the Cruisers on Blu-ray is, for nostalgia freaks, certainly a good thing to do. All right, Mark. Now we have two others from Shout Factory.
This is the greatest moment of my life.
And I know what you're saying. Class of 1984 is a movie you have been waiting for your entire life.
That's the one I wanted to talk about.
So we have two movies here, both of them in collector's editions, and they're being released in tandem, kind of because they're a little bit sort of the same in some respects, I guess.
No, they're not.
Clearly,
one is an all-time classic, one of my favorite films of all time. The other one is Class of 84.
So clearly somebody over there said, you know what, I'll bet we could get more sales of Class of 1984 if we release it the same week as Escape from New York, both of them in collector's editions, because then everybody will think that they're kind of the same. I mean, they're sort of a Warriors-ish, post-apocalyptic-y,
like roving gangs,
roving gang
people,
vigilante thing.
Exactly.
You kind of can sort of tandem them together if you really stretch it. But anyway, so yes, look, Escape.
Give me this.
Knock it out.
First of all, I know all about this.
Yes, you do.
First of all, it's Escape from effing New York. I have seen this movie. You know what? I would probably say that Star Trek II, The Godfather, and Escape from New York might be, or maybe like Airplane. I mean, if I were to list 10 films I've seen the most of any films, Escape from New York would be in that list.
Have I mentioned I took my mother to see Escape from New York opening day?
All right, so here we have
my little 5'2" German-born mother, who walked out thinking, I really like that. I like that black man's car. I thought that was neat.
It's the greatest. Okay.
She had no idea who he was, Isaac Hayes or whatever. She's just like, yeah, I liked him, that Duke, that black actor Duke, and his car with the chandeliers. My mother was obsessed with the chandeliers in the Cadillac. To save my soul, I have absolutely no idea why. It was the strangest conversation the whole way home. And she said nothing about the violence and just the incredible brutality of it. Didn't flinch. Oh. It was just, it was a fun film.
I own the John Carpenter scores. I know you did. I own that John Carpenter score.
It's a terrible score.
Oh, it's so good. You can stop that.
It's terrible.
Them's fighting words. I played the crap out of that score. Oh, my God. It's so good. Yeah. I can sing half the cues. Hey, look. It looks great. It's got a low budget. And, it's from the 80s, so it's not going to look crisp and beautiful, but it's definitely an improvement over the previous Blu-ray, which you just throw away, and definitely an improvement over the previous DVD, which I still owned up to this moment. So it looks really good. The audio is in 5.1. It's pretty much, it sounds about the same as the Blu-ray, which is fine, whatever. It's all good. The extras, really good extras. Pretty much everything from the 2-disc DVD is there, including the documentary, a couple of theatrical trailers, deleted scenes. There's also a commentary with Kurt Russell and John Carpenter. The deleted scenes have a commentary with Kurt Russell and John Carpenter. And I'm also proud to say, because I love this movie, and we love Shout Factory, that there's a second disc with all sorts of other features, which is totally worth listening to and watching. There's also, ladies and gentlemen, another audio commentary. It's with Deborah Hill and Joe Alves, the producer and the production designer. There's also a new audio commentary, which is okay, with Adrian Barbeau and the DP Dean Cundy. Now, Dean Cundy's interesting because
he's a great DP.
Because he's a great DP, and he does give us a decent amount of insight into the making of the film. Adrian Barbeau was just a woman at the time in the 80s known for her gigantic breasts, and that's basically it.
And for being married to John Carpenter.
And for being married to John Carpenter. Yeah. But, otherwise, I think this movie is great. I love this movie. I think this is pretty much as good as you're going to get regarding packaged media treatment of this film. I would definitely 100% go get it if you love this movie. I would throw out the DVD, throw out the previous Blu-ray, go get this one. It's a great looking image considering the budget and considering the time it was made. And the audio is good. And it's got 2 discs worth of extras. I'm telling you, Escape from New York. I just love it. I love this movie.
It's a fantastic film.
And I love the Blu-ray. They knocked it out of the park.
They always do. Shout Factory just always kills it. And, real quickly, Class of 1984, which is trying to piggyback on it a little bit. I mean, not a terrible film. This was made in 1982. It was kind of a... it was one of those early 80s. It was sort of trying to be another one of those things that the Blackboard Jungle did, and that a lot of youth films have done over time. There were a lot of them in the 60s. Some of them in the 50s, a few in the 70s. Every generation has them, the scary youth. Oh my gosh, the kids are getting just violent and they have no empathy and they're going to be horrible. And Mark Lester, this kind of sort of put him on the map a little bit. He would go on to do Class of 1999 as well as a couple of much more successful films, Commando, the Schwarzenegger film, and of course Firestarter with Drew Barrymore. And it's competently made. It's not brilliant. It's noteworthy because it was co-written by Tom Holland, who of course would go on to be a director in his own right. And it's got a few interesting people appearing in the cast: Perry King, Roddy McDowall, Timothy Van Patten. So I mean, it's got a few things going for it. But other than that, it's a bit of a dated cult film. And then lastly, one more double feature from the Scream Factory line of Shout Factory, which I've got to say, I just have never understood the appeal of either of these films. I just think they are both so... The whole series, Ghoulies and Ghoulies 2. And I think
Ghoulies was never my thing.
And there were a few more. Well,
Gremlins. I like Gremlins.
But the Ghoulies and Troll and all those things, they were all sort of Gremlins knockoffs. And Ghoulies just... The puppets are so stupid. They're just so dumb. This is from 1985, and some people love these things as like camp classics. They were made by Charles Band at the time, who had a little bit of a kind of a cult exploitation factory going in the mid and early 80s, doing a lot of American film market stuff, straight to video, and they had a few hits, and Ghoulies was one of them. I think they did Motorama as well. No, it was a guy who used to work for Charles Band who made Motorama, actually, come to think of it, because I remember I had a meeting with him. And I did.
What's that noise? Is that a name dropping?
All he did was just rant furiously about Harvey Weinstein. It was like he just, I guess Harvey had done something that made him unhappy, or he felt screwed over, and he just could not stop just frothing at the mouth about how he hated Harvey Weinstein. Anyway. Okay, so there we go. That is our Shout Factory and Scream Factory line. What else do we got, Mark?
We have a very interesting two-disc set that if you're a movie historian, you should really kind of rent this. In 1933, there was a novel called Imitation of Life, and the novel was made into a movie in 1934 starring Claudette Colbert, and it was also made into a movie in 1959, much more famous movie, directed by Douglas Sirk. And both of them are available on a terrific Blu-ray. I mean, really, I have to give Universal credit on this. They packaged both of these films onto one Blu-ray, and they actually added a couple of decent bonus features, including a little documentary and a couple of feature commentaries. So the thing with Imitation of Life is that it was the Douglas Sirk version is not that hard to find. The 1934 version is a little harder to find. It's one that a lot of people may not even know that Imitation of Life was even a movie before that.
I didn't know. Me of all people. I mean, and I like Imitation of Life, and I remember I had to write a paper on it in school, you know. But honestly, the fact there's an earlier version, completely new to me.
Earlier version, it's about this businesswoman who's white, played by Claudette Colbert, and she has a black housekeeper, and the black housekeeper has this amazing recipe for pancakes that becomes like, the basis of Colbert's, character's, business and empire.
Yeah.
And so then there was the sequel. And not the sequel, the remake in 1959, which is all really people talk about because Douglas Sirk at the time was such a visually distinctive director who had a very melodramatic, soap opera-ish way about his movies. And it's really interesting when you take a look at these two films and how they are visually similar, but also different, and also how they treat the idea of racism at the time. So this is a really interesting little two-movie compilation here, Imitation of Life. I would definitely check this out.
Pretty cool.
The Roommates is paired with A Woman for All Men in a Blu-ray double feature. I have to say I'm not really a fan of either of these movies, so I don't really know why you would rent them. There's really nobody in it who is remotely famous. Well, I guess Alex Rocco. Alex Rocco got shot in the eye in The Godfather, so he does not get shot in the eye here. However, he does get shot in the eye in The Godfather. And then The Roommates.
His son, Mark Rocco, passed away. Mark Rocco's he was young. He directed Murder in the First, which my wife worked on, and
really?
A few other things. Yeah, he died.
How did he die?
I may have been cancer. I can't remember, but it was a few years ago. I was shocked. I thought, wow, he was a young guy. He was in his 50s.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. And Roommates is about these young ladies. They go away into the woods for the summer, and of course they wind up getting into all sorts of crazy catfights with a killer. And then A Woman for All Men is about this director. He becomes obsessed with this woman. It's an exploitation thriller. I really didn't like either of them.
All righty. So we got a bunch of interesting catalog stuff from the Kino Lorber Studio Classics line and also from Olive. I'll roll through these fairly quickly. These don't warrant a whole lot of attention each. It's good to just let you know they're here, and there's a few extras that are worth mentioning. Edgar Allan Poe's Tales of Terror was the first of the Roger Corman Poe
films. Little earthquake, by the way.
Where?
Right now, it just happened.
Did it?
A little teeny earthquake.
You weren't just sort of passing wind or anything?
I was not. Well, I've been known to do that, but this was an actual earthquake.
Wow.
Very small.
I didn't even notice. You must be more sensitive to those things.
Well, no, you were talking and engaged in talking.
Okay.
But yet I was not.
Edgar Allan Poe's Tales of Terror, the first of the Roger Corman Poe films with Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, and Basil Rathbone. The Poe films are all a lot of fun. They are uneven. But I think Tales of Terror is the one that seems to date the best. The Raven is the one that dates the worst. By the time Peter Lorre is growing feathers, people just cry. And one reason
Sorry, Wade.
That's okay. One reason I think Tales of Terror works so well is it's a really good script by Richard Matheson, the one of the great writers of all time. Certainly does a great job. And of course, this was done for AIP, the James Nicholson, Sam Arkoff group, and a lot of fun stuff there. There's an audio commentary by Tim Lucas, film historian, that hits just about all the major beats. We covered the Poe films a little bit in Schlock when Ray and I made that doc. So, I know a good bit about this. There's an on-camera interview with Roger Corman as well, which I always find funny because we did an on-camera interview with Roger Corman, and now every time I watch someone else's on-camera interview with Roger Corman, I know exactly what went on. So I can kind of fill in the behind-the-scenes blanks. And anyway, it's good. Corman's always good on camera. He does takes. He directs himself as an interview subject. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen, but he's good. And the audio commentary is good. There's another audio commentary with Vincent Price historian David Del Valle and actor David Frankham, which is also pretty good. And then some trailers, and that's about it. But it's a well overdue Blu-ray. W.D. Richter, otherwise known as the guy who made The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, and then went away and didn't do another significant film ever. For some strange reason. I mean, it's like one of the all-time great cult films, and then he just vanished. But he did do one other movie that kind of carries a little bit of attention, and that is Late for Dinner, which is also interesting because it was written by Mark Andrus, who wound up winning an Oscar for As Good as It Gets, and which is sort of his autobiography in many respects. So this is an interesting combination, the writer of As Good as It Gets with the director of Buckaroo Banzai. Late for Dinner, which is kind of a little bit like Somewhere in Time. It stars Peter Berg, now a hot director all on his own, and Brian Wimmer, along with Marcia Gay Harden and Peter Gallagher. And Brian Wimmer and Peter Berg are a couple of guys who travel essentially from 1962 to 1991. And it's the excuse here is a cryonics experiment, which fair enough, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But as a time travel thing, it's got some charm to it. It's much better than it has any business being. So that is now on Blu-ray as well. As is Woman of Straw with Gina Lollobrigida and Sean Connery, two of the most beautiful people who've ever been in a movie ever. This is directed by Basil Dearden, genius. And based on a novel by Catherine Arley and co-adapted by Stanley Mann. So there's some good talent in here, made in 1964, and kind of an interesting noir romance with some good twists and turns, and I think definitely worth checking out. It's kind of faded away for some reason, but it deserves to be rediscovered because Sean Connery is so good, and Gina Lollobrigida is just delicious. And then, speaking of delicious, Gina Lollobrigida also stars alongside Mark would think she's delicious, Shelley Winters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the super delicious Phil Silvers.
Oh, yeah.
And the even more delicious Telly Savalas.
Meh.
And Melvin Franks. Buona Sera, Mrs. Campbell. Lee Grant is in this as well. I mean, this is actually a surprisingly fun film that dates really quite well, and I think this is really, really well worth discovering. This is when you talk about studio classics. I don't know if this is actually a studio classic, but it's certainly a film well worth looking at. It came from that period of UA when they were pumping out a lot of good stuff in the late '60s, and then they changed hands, and became a new studio again when they started making the Rocky films. But those films from that late '60s period, they've been sitting in vaults, and they deserve to be rediscovered.
Wait, this kind of skipped our gaze when it came out in January, but Working Girl.
Yeah.
Long overdue.
Yes.
Is on Blu-ray.
Yes.
This movie was up for like 6 Oscars.
Right.
Harrison Ford, Melanie Griffith, Sigourney Weaver. All I'll say is that this is probably the Devil Wears Prada of its time.
I'm going to make a prediction.
That you're ugly?
That Melanie Griffith,
yes,
that the Oscar nomination that she got for this movie,
yes,
the last Oscar nomination she'll ever get.
Wow. You're going on a limb there, Wade.
I am.
However, her daughters starred in 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
That was the best thing about it.
Yeah, and her daughter looks more like her dad. She looks like Don Johnson.
She's pretty.
I know she's pretty, but you look at her and you still can't shake the fact that it's Don Johnson's daughter because there's a little bit of Don Johnson in the face, and it kind of scares me.
Anyway, Working Girl was a bit of a phenomenon at the time. It really was a film of the moment. You know why? It was very much a film that tapped into the idea of women in the workplace and the whole glass ceiling and can women make it on Wall Street when it's a man's world, that kind of stuff. I mean, now it's a bit antiquated, but at the time, that was a kind of a big deal. It was a very sophisticated comedy like only Mike Nichols can do, and but I think it still holds up as a script and as a film. It holds up, even though some of the points, it's almost like 9 to 5, where some of the points it's making about women in the workplace feel a little dated.
It does.
But still, Working Girl is a terrific film.
I agree.
It holds up as a good, solid comedy.
I agree. And then here are our Olive releases this week. I forgot half these films even existed. That's a great thing about Olive. They come out with this stuff and you go, oh yeah, that existed. Doesn't mean you should watch it. I would recommend nobody watch Firewalker, because really, why?
How about Firestarter?
No, Firewalker. Here's the deal with Firewalker. Golan Globus and Canon Films, Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus, they made just all kinds of junk in the mid-'80s, and most of it starred Chuck Norris. Delta Force and, Missing in Action and all that crap. And then they did this crazy knockoff Indiana Jones movie with Chuck Norris and Lou Gossett, who had, by now won an Oscar for Officer and a Gentleman, and was quickly trying to assassinate his career with stupid roles like this. And they made Firewalker, where there are a couple of, gold diggers who are just looking in the jungle for... It's just... You can't believe this movie when you watch it. It's just so beyond silly. It really is. Directed by J. Lee Thompson, who's made many better films, but, Firewalker, stupid movie. Abbott and Costello in Dance With Me, Henry. I love Abbott and Costello.
I don't. Don't get it.
You know what? But this
Three
is
Stooges, don't get it. Abbott and Costello, don't get it.
You don't get Three Stooges?
No, never have.
But you get the Marx Brothers.
The best. Marx Brothers are
right?
the best.
They
Well,
are.
No, here's the thing. Groucho's the best. Okay?
No,
if the Marx Brothers didn't have
Harpo.
Groucho, they'd be the Three Stooges. Okay?
That's kind of true. But Harpo's so funny.
You love all that like physical Benny Hill stupid
I love
humor.
I love it. So anyway, as far as Abbott and Costello movies go, Dance With Me, Henry, I guess it's serviceable. I tend to like like they meet Frankenstein, meet the Mummy. Those are the ones that I tend to like a little bit. But this one's fine. It's perfectly fine. It's more of a serious film in many respects. But it's still perfectly enjoyable and has that studio sheen to it. So why the hell not? And then a movie I don't recommend for anybody, Biodome. Pauly Shore and Stephen Baldwin. Truly a movie that just had no business existing. I'm surprised I've talked about it even as long as I have. That was from the period when Pauly Shore movies were obligatory January viewing for people who wanted to kill themselves. Blue Sky. This is such a fascinating story. Blue Sky was one of those Orion films that when Orion went bankrupt, remember they had that great run in the early 90s? They won a whole bunch of Oscars in a row, right? They had, Dances with Wolves, and they had Silence of the Lambs, and they were like the company. They were the unbelievable company to beat. They were the Weinsteins of their day. And then they went under for some insane, godforsaken reason, and a bunch of those Orion films sat on the shelf. They couldn't get them released. Nobody wanted to pick them up, and they just sort of got caught in limbo, in bankruptcy limbo. Blue Sky was one of them, and Jessica Lange and Tommy Lee Jones. How does a movie with that cast get caught in limbo? Directed by Tony Richardson, one of the great lions of the British cinema, from the Angry Young Men period. He directed 1963's Best Picture, Tom Jones.
Yes, the loneliness of the long distance runner.
Crying out loud, how does this movie get stuck in limbo? And sure enough, it did. But you know what? It finally, and it's basically about a military guy with a wife who's just out of control, and how they try to hold their family together. And sure enough, man, this movie finally got released. It finally made it to theaters. And sure enough, Jessica Lange wins Best Actress at the Academy Awards. Very deservedly. And that's a wonderful fairy tale. This is now on Blu-ray from Olive, and I applaud them for doing so. Also, one of the great films from the blaxploitation era, Cooley High, finally makes it. 1975, really a seminal film, and it set in the 1960s but released in the 1970s, and with a lot of really pertinent social commentary about both decades and how they contrast. Garrett Morris, really good performance in this thing. Fantastic performance by Lawrence Hilton Jacobs from Welcome Back, Kotter, who of course would go on to play Joe Jackson in the TV miniseries on the Jackson Family. I mean, really, Cooley High is a great film that dates very well, I think. And then lastly, The Wicked Lady with Faye Dunaway and Alan Bates and John Gielgud, which tried to this is a Michael Winner film from 1983 that way too late after the fact tried to capitalize on the Richard Lester Musketeer movies from the 70s. And had it been released closer to them, I think it might have done better. But as it is, the story of Lady Barbara Skelton, which is loosely based in fact, is just mildly interesting. And Michael Winner is not really the director for this. But that said, this was again Golden Globus trying to make Canon into a legit film outfit and do some legit films in the early to mid 80s. And you have to kind of applaud them for the try, even though it's not entirely successful.
Wait, it's Criterion time.
Oh, yeah.
We got two good ones. Two great ones, actually. We have Odd Man Out. This is from 1947, directed by Carol Reed, who, of course, is most famous for directing The Third Man. And here we have James Mason.
This is James Mason.
No, you're James Mason.
This is James Mason.
Please don't.
Anyway, the whole thing takes place like all around the alleyways and darkened interiors and exteriors of Belfast, where this gang commits a political murder, and then for the rest of the film, pretty much they're on the run. And it's a terrific film. It's so well shot. You know, Ireland has never looked so, so forbidding and foreboding and creepy. It's got that noirish feel to it, because, again, so much of the film is just shot like in alleyways at night, and it looks great. When it comes to special features, we have I enjoyed a couple of these. Obviously, there's a new interview with a cinema scholar. It's pretty good. New interview with a music scholar talking about the music. A documentary featuring James Mason visiting his hometown. I didn't have that much interest to me in terms of the movie, but I do love James Mason, so it's cool. There's also a radio adaptation of the film from 1952, although you'll probably never listen to that for more than 30 seconds. And so there you go, Odd Man Out, an important film for the era, a great film in the history of a director who, he's directed great films. I'm very surprised that nobody has done like a real appreciation of Carol Reed.
It's long overdue. It really is. I mean, people know him basically for The Third Man and Oliver, and that's kind of it. So it is. It's long overdue that people start taking a look at his other stuff. I agree. Also,
we have Sullivan's Travels. This is one of the great comedies of the 1940s. I mean, Preston Sturges. If you guys want to really investigate one of the first writer director name brands in cinema history, Preston Sturges would have to be right up there.
Totally.
In terms of writing and directing.
Absolutely.
Right? He was right up there in terms of one of the very first.
So gifted. Gifted.
So gifted. And this is one of his best films. That's why Criterion has taken the care to release this on Blu-ray. It stars Joel McCrea, who's starred in a couple of his Sturges' films. He plays this Hollywood director who decides he's tired of making lightweight movies and he wants to make a serious movie about human suffering. But of course, he is reminded that as a Hollywood director, he knows nothing about human suffering. So he decides to dress up as a bum and go around the country, learning what it's like to be a hobo. And comedy ensues. It's a terrific film, so funny. It totally holds up. Veronica Lake is also in it. It's so beautiful. The Blu-ray itself is great, and it's really the price of admission, almost worth it for The Rise and Fall of an American Dreamer, which is like a 15-year-old documentary. It's things like almost an hour and a half. And it's all about Preston Sturges and his life and his career. You get a sense of how important he was at the time and how important he remains in terms of the continuum of writers and directors having their way despite all the Hollywood interference that keeps them from doing the work they want to do. So it's great stuff. There's also the interview with director's widow, Sandy Sturgis, from 2001, and it's great. Sullivan's Travels. Now, thing is that I have a DVD set of all of Sturgis' films.
Oh,
not all of them. It's like eight. It's like eight of them.
Yeah,
like eight of them. But it's all the good ones.
Fantastic.
So I'm not sure. So I really hesitated to pick this up and watch it and buy it, but I kind of had to.
You kind of got it.
You kind of have to.
I got a trio of exploitation films here. This one is the most bizarre story. I mean, we all know stories of uncompleted films that take 10, 20, 30 years before they get finished or fixed, or somebody discovers some elements and inserts it. I mean, that happens every so often. This is the weirdest thing I've ever heard. I've never heard of the film originally, and then the story of it is just bizarre beyond belief. Gone with the Pope. Are you ready for this?
I am.
Exploitation director named Duke Mitchell. He makes this movie in the mid-'70s, never finishes it, and then dies in 1981, okay? And the movie's unfinished. And then Sage Stallone and his partner at Grindhouse Releasing, they pick this thing up in the mid-'90s and decide it needs to be restored. And they spend 15 years basically putting the movie together, finishing a film that was shot in the mid-'70s, whose director's been dead since the '80s, to try to get this. And finally, here it is, Gone with the Pope. And it's not very good, but it's such a weird and eccentric and wild and funky artifact with such a fascinating history that it's almost irresistible in some ways. This is a Blu-ray and DVD combo set from Grindhouse Releasing in a nice clear plastic case that gives it that special sheen. And here's the idea behind the film. You ready for this?
No.
This is the idea is that there's a guy who, played by Duke Mitchell, okay, the guy who directed it. There's a guy who wants to. This is how he's going to make his $1 million or his gazillion dollars. This is how he's going to become rich. He's going to kidnap the Pope, and he's going to hold him for ransom. And the ransom is that every Catholic in the world will pay him $1.
Ooh.
Is that not the craziest thing you've ever heard?
How would you do that?
I don't know.
Would you Kickstarter that or something? How would you do that?
In the age of PayPal, that's a.
Yeah, I guess you'd PayPal that.
Well, you would now, but in 1976, it's what is it? Mail order? Go down and get yourself a.
No, you put $1 in an envelope.
I guess. How do you know it wouldn't get stolen? It's the weirdest thing ever. Massacre Gun is from Arrow Video. This is a Blu-ray DVD combo as well, also in a clear plastic case. And this is for people who just love completely unhinged, violent Yakuza movies, as bloody as they can possibly be. The Joe Shiseido, who starred, or Shishido, who starred in a lot of these things way back, is perfectly fine as this hitman who decides to just go completely ballistic on the mob. And it's a violent Yakuza movie. There's really not anything more than that to the plot. The director is noteworthy only because he used to work with Seijun Suzuki. So Yasuharu Hasebe, not a legendary director by any means. He did things like Female Prisoner, Scorpion, and other assorted exploitation titles or Japsploitation titles, which is not a politically correct term, but that's what they often call them. The only thing that's really significant here, I think, that makes it beyond the movie that's really kind of interesting, is the interview that they have with Tony Raines, who's a great film historian and really contextualizes it in an interesting way. And then we also have from the Redemption line, which is now being released through Kino Lorber, Volume 2 of the Pete Walker collection. If you have Volume 1, you know exactly what you're getting into. If you don't have Volume 1, you might want to rent one of these things because they can test your stomach. He's not exactly Herschel Gordon Lewis, but his movies are kind of violent and bloody. The titles should tell you enough: The Flesh and Blood Show, Frightmare, House of Mortal Sin, and Home Before Midnight. There's also a bonus Blu-ray disc here with the Big Switch and Man of Violence on it. So, if you know what you're getting into with Pete Walker, then go knock it out. You'll have a grand old time with all this just horrible stuff. A lot of really great special features here. Interviews with Pete Walker and a 3D sequence from Flesh and Blood Show, an audio commentary with Pete Walker on Frightmare. And on House of Mortal Sin, and featurettes, on all of them. It's, so for Pete Walker fans, this is a big deal, and if you have the first volume, you kind of got to get this one.
Says you.
Says I.
On Wings of Eagles, Wade, Burt Lancaster, Richard Crenna.
Ooh.
This is a 2-disc, this is a mini-series, So this thing is like 220 minutes. Is this any good? It's 1978, and a couple of American executives are arrested and they're held hostage in Iran. So now you have to understand, at the time when the story really happened.
Yes.
When these this is a true story.
Mm-hmm.
When these two executives get captured and held in Iran.
Sure.
H. Ross Perot.
Oh yeah,
played
I know
by
this
Richard
story.
Crenna.
I remember this.
Is the guy who tries to secure their release. H. Ross Perot, of course, became maybe after like John Anderson, the first serious independent presidential candidate.
Yep.
So this is on Wings of Eagles, and it was popular for the time. It definitely made a splash. The cast is not. I mean, the cast is Burt Lancaster, great. Richard Crenna, who I actually met back in the day when I was doing talk shows, and is a wonderful man. Paul LeMat is also in it. So it's based on the Ken Follett book at the time. Ken Follett had a lot of his books made into either films or miniseries. It's fine. It's totally fine. Got a lot of action. For TV at least, got a lot of action, and your parents might know what it is. Well, I'll say your parents might know what it is on Wings of Eagles.
All righty. Mark?
Yes, ma'am.
I've got a ton of kid vid here. You want me to try to blow through this in about 5 or 6 minutes? Shall I do this?
In the sense I'm supposed to time you?
Yeah, let's see. Let's do it, because we got some TV to get to here, so let's try to make this.
I'm gonna time you.
Okay.
Do this thing. 5 or 6.
Let's do 7. Give me 7. Give me 7 minutes, and that'll give us time to finish off with some TV and maybe some foreign.
You ready?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1. Boris.
Okay, so I've been throwing a lot of this stuff on, and just to see if my daughter responds to it, because she's into a lot of stuff now. We have her watching Wallace and Gromit, so she's graduated.
Wasting time.
Okay, so the Aviators, voiced by Brad Garrett and Jeff Foxworthy. A lot of animated critters flying around. Not all that interest. Not really. Didn't catch her fancy any. Fantastic set here. Batman versus Robin with a little Batman figurine. This is actually really quite good from the the animated DC people. I think some of these things just keep getting better and better, and I keep saying that they've got to get these guys to write the movies. Some great Blu-ray exclusives here, especially the featurette Gotham City's Secret, the Mythic Court of Owls, and the Talons of the Owls. Really, really cool, and that doesn't give it away. The bad guy here is Talon. I thought that was really cool. My daughter didn't respond to it at all. Power Rangers Super Mega Force, The Perfect Storm, got nothing out of her because Power Rangers are apparently strictly a boy phenomenon. So that was a non-starter. Bark Ranger, with John Lovitz doing the voice of Ranger, is one of these things that I guess gets the family seal of approval. This is, of course, not animated. This is just straight family-oriented kid vid stuff. Did not really get any interest out of my daughter, who actually normally loves dogs and bears. She loves the Berenstain Bears for some godforsaken reason. Yellowbird, cute, really enjoyable. Nice little animated tidbit from Wrekin Hill by way of Lionsgate. And Seth Green, Dakota Fanning, Danny Glover, Elliot Gould, Richard Kind all do some really, really wonderful voice work and a surprisingly good film. Really enjoyable, good bird animation, very funny. Chuggington, he's
Chuggington?
He's a train. Chuggington Fire Patrol Rescue.
Like he chugs beer.
Nah, there's just 6 more episodes from the Chuggington series. This just keeps on chugging out. And if you like it, you like it. If your kids don't like it, then don't buy it. Monster High keeps coming out with really cool Blu-ray editions. This is a Blu-ray and Ultraviolet set. Haunted. Monster High Haunted. I never really respond to this thing, but the animation's good. It's solid. So that's probably worth checking out if your kids enjoy it. It's for older kids, really. From PBS Kids, I always enjoy these a lot. Dinosaur Train, Explore Outdoors. I've always hated Dinosaur Train, but my daughter suddenly loves dinosaurs, as I guess all kids eventually do. So I'm obligated to watch a lot of Dinosaur Train now, and it's kind of strangely growing on me, and I'm learning a lot from the little educational segments about dinosaurs. I feel like I'm 12 all over again. Also, from PBS Kids, Wild Kratts, Sharktastic. This also tries to be educational. This is less engaging than Dinosaur Train, but still a notch above the usual. Teen Titans Go! Appetite for Disruption. As Mark and I have talked many times, we are creeped out by the whole idea of these strange junior versions of DC superheroes. Other people's kids apparently are not. The Tom and Jerry Show, funny side up. 3 hours of more recent Tom and Jerry stuff, which kind of harkens back a little bit to original Tom and Jerry stuff. So you got 13 episodes here that are perfectly fine, relatively enjoyable. They certainly pay homage to the original stuff in a decent way that's respectful. Stella and Sam, wonderful animation. This is seen on Sprout, which is affiliated with PBS, and they have a lot of really great animation. The artwork, of course, is faithful to the original book series of Stella and Sam, and there are about 10 episodes here that are really, really sweet. So that is faithful to the original source material. Uncle Grandpa is from Cartoon Network, 12 episodes. This is Good Morning, and this is not really for kids. There are 12 episodes that just kind of creep me out a little bit, and the Cartoon Network stuff, I can't ever quite figure out for whom the audience is, because this is not for me and this is not for kids, but I guess it's for dirty old men who just want to see themselves animated, maybe. Thundercats, the complete series, finally on Blu-ray. Good animation, not really for me, but, go for it if you want. Caillou, also from PBS Kids. Caillou is a Canadian animated series that apparently is really good for kids' cognition and education. Most people just find him whiny and wonder why he's bald. Which I still don't understand. But anyway, it's the 25th anniversary, 3 DVDs in this. This is Caillou's Can-Do collection with Big Kid Caillou, Caillou the Everyday Hero, and Caillou's World of Wonder. Caillou's always learning important lessons about life, but he never grows any hair. Maybe he needs to go meet Charlie Brown and they can get some kind of baldness remedy together. PBS Kids Birthday Party for really young kids. Word World Building Readers. We're trying to get my daughter to learn to put letters together. She knows her letters now. We're trying to get her to understand that they form words. And this didn't exactly help. So I don't know if I can fully recommend it. Maybe it'll help when she gets a little older. Slugterra, Slug Fu Showdown is a feature-length Slugterra adventure. This is kind of, more American adaptation of anime style and a little bit for older kids. Serviceable. Littlest Pet Shop Pals. Oh, there I go. Am I out of time? Did it zip?
It will soon enough.
Okay. Littlest Pet Shop Pals. You get 5 episodes plus a bonus sing-along here. Paddington, one of my favorite films of last year, which was released in the U.S. actually in January, but released in the U.K. in November. I was scolded by my good friend Charles Solomon for liking the movie because the real Paddington, in the eyes of an animation expert, is the original animated Paddington, the stop-motion Paddington, based on the books. And this is the complete Paddington Bear Collector's Edition. And it's lovely. It's sweet. It's surprisingly, I didn't realize it's the same story that they had in the movie. So I'm kind of endeared now by this. This is from Mill Creek, and this is a 3-disc set, Paddington Bear Collector's Edition, worth checking out, but not to the exclusion of the movie. I'm not going to talk about those. Hold on. How close am I?
Hold on.
Okay, I'm going to cut through a bunch of Nickelodeon titles really quickly. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Retreat. This is more of the more recent Ninja Turtles animation style that I'm not fond of. Blue's Clues, which I totally despise. 4.5 hours. Get Clued into School Pack. There we go. I'm out of time.
Ha ha.
Yeah.
Okay, wait for you.
I'll finish.
1 minute of overtime.
1 minute of overtime. I despise Blue's Clues. I just think it's the dumbest show ever. But little kids just love the daylights out of it. Alphabet Power, Blue Takes You to School, Shapes and Colors. For really little kids, I guess it's good. The Legend of Korra is always very, very impressive animation. This is Book 4 Balance on Blu-ray with a lot of extras, tons of extras. So if you're into The Legend of Korra, which is, I guess if I were, 13, I'd be loving it. It's cool. Dora's Mermaid Adventures Collection is a Nickelodeon gift set with Dora Saves the Mermaids and Dora's Rescue in Mermaid Kingdom. I just am so turned off by Dora, and she's aging now, so she's like getting into puberty, and it's kind of creeping me out. But people love Dora. A friend of ours in the UK, his daughters can't get enough of Dora. And then SpongeBob SquarePants, the pilot, a mini movie. this is the pilot in the square shorts is what this is. I just still don't get this, but who am I? And I think that does it. Yeah, that does it. All right, Mark.
Well, howdy do.
We're all done.
Wait, let me try that again. If you are a Western fan, which I am, and if you are a Wyatt Earp fan, which I had my phase of reading all about Wyatt Earp and the Wild West, from scholarly perspective, not from like a lame, perspective, cheesy perspective. You might want to check out a little movie from 1971 called Doc. And this one stars Stacy Keach as the world-famous tubercular dentist who befriended Wyatt Earp and was involved in the gunfight at the OK Corral. And Faye Dunaway as Katie Elder, his girlfriend. This, and also Harris Yulin, the old character actor who was kind of born to play those Western roles. What I like about this movie, and it was a bit of a surprise to me, directed by Frank Perry, it sort of takes a different tack. It's not like super... there's a lot of action, horse riding and gunfighting, whatever, but it's not like a super action film. It's a little bit more philosophical. It's a little bit more psychological in terms of what it was like to really live in the West, and on that score, I kind of really appreciated it. Obviously these cowboys were all, vaguely literate, and the script by Pete Hamill is true to the idea that these cowboys were vaguely literate, can barely speak in decent sentences, and yet every once in a while they break out into some philosophical speech about existence, which is totally, is totally not what these cowboys would ever say, because they could barely put two words together. So the script, while authentic in the cadence and the words of people who were uneducated, sometimes lapses into these philosophical little digressions that don't really make much sense. But it's interesting. I appreciate it. A whole new take on the Western genre, Doc, starring Stacy Keach. And if you like the genre, I would check that out.
Sweet. Well, let's see. I will do a few foreign things, and I'll let you...
you mean things that are foreign to me or foreign to other people?
Foreign titles.
Oh, you said you do some foreign things.
Got some good foreign titles here, and then we'll launch into the TV. So I'll let you get kind of set up with the TV while I talk about Goodbye to Language 3D, the Godard film that I just don't get. There was a funny exchange when I reviewed this on NPR with Henry Sheehan, and Henry talked about the importance of, closing one eye when you watch parts of the film, because Godard does things with the separation that he, the images just start playing with your optic nerve. Like he'll send one image one direction, the other one the other direction, and you do have to sort of close an eye to make sense of what's on the screen. He's messing with you. And my comment was I wanted to watch it with both eyes closed. Which I just think this is the most pretentious thing in the world. It just makes no sense. But there is a rhyme and reason to it. I could not bring myself to focus on it. It's just shots of dogs and naked people, and it just on and on and on it goes, and it's just insufferable. And anyway, this thing has a 3D version on disc 1, a 2D version on disc 2, both of them Blu-ray. And the 2D version, it's not the true version of the film, because Godard wanted this thing to be seen in 3D because he's so experimental. But I just wish he'd stop it with these essays, these endless essays. And then also of note, King of Masks is out again on DVD from First Run Features. I wish this would come out on Blu-ray. This was released originally by Samuel Goldwyn. Wonderful Chinese film about a puppet master in China who... basically raises a young girl as a boy, and it is truly a fascinating film. It's a wonderful film. Anyway, it beautifully shot, very poignant, has a lot of sort of commentary about Chinese society and puppeteering and whatnot. Beautiful in every respect. And from Criterion, from their Eclipse line, Silent Ozu, a trio of crime dramas that Ozu made that are not often paid attention to because they're very un-Ozu-like. Walk Cheerfully, That Night's Wife, and Dragnet Girl. All of them absolutely worth checking out from the 1930s, before Ozu sort of became the guy that we all know him as. And it's interesting to see his style evolve. No extras here, but a great set for Ozu fans. And then the big zingers from Criterion this week, Cries and Whispers, the Ingmar Bergman film, and The River from Jean Renoir. Both of them brilliant films by great European masters. absolutely essential to any collection. I would say The River is one of maybe the more important film here, and I know a lot of people would disagree with me, but Jean Renoir shooting a color film for the first time in his career in India, and so many unusual elements go into this film, and so much it's just so novel and so hypnotic in so many respects. And lots of great extras here. This is one of they always talk about, their titles being film schools in a box. This one really, honestly, truly is. There's so much richness to how the film was made and what it represents, and really, really great. Especially a 2008 documentary about the making of the film is just absolutely essential. A Martin Scorsese interview is just, more Martin Scorsese rambling, but in a very intelligent way, of course. And then Cries and Whispers. Not my favorite Bergman film. One of his more self-indulgent efforts. By the time he gets into the 1970s, he's sort of brooding a little bit too much in his movies. I much prefer his work in the 1960s, but still, it's a very good film. It's arduous at points because of the storyline. If you know what's going on here, the handicapped sister and crawling on the floor, and some of the stuff that's revealed in this family, the cancer, all of this stuff is so heavy and brooding. But there's really, really good stuff in the extras. New interview with Harriet Anderson, that's conducted by Peter Cowie, who does a lot of commentaries, and really wonderful stuff. So there's it's absolutely worth checking out.
All right, let's wrap it up with some TV. Signed, Sealed, and Delivered, the entire series from the Hallmark Channel. This is a very weepy thing from the executive producer of Touched by an Angel. So if you know it's from the executive producer of Touched by an Angel, you already know what it is. It's all based on, there's a letter, and the letter changes somebody's life, and it's all about that. So if you're a woman, go for it. In Discovery, Naked and Afraid, Season 1. The only reason why Naked and Afraid became popular or even notable is because James Franco did an episode of and Seth Rogen did an episode of Naked and Afraid to promote The Interview.
Oh, good grief! Which
of course wound up being a whole nother thing. Anyway, these are about people who survive in very exotic lands. They're naked and they're afraid. A Haunting, Season 7. This is supernatural stories. I didn't really like any of these, didn't buy any of these, didn't quite get it. But again, we love Shout Factory. So, A Haunting Season 7. I didn't even know there were 6 previous seasons of The Haunting, or of A Haunting, but what the hell do I know? Metal Hurland Chronicles. Now, this is one of those...
Metal Hurland, I should point out.
Yes.
This will make sense to nobody, unless you've lived in France. Metal Hurland is the French edition of heavy metal. Metal Hurland is heavy metal in French. It's not completely the same, but this is adapted from the French version of heavy metal. That's the origin of this.
Well, yes, it's the popular comic book, heavy metal. They made it into a television series. It's got Rutger Hauer in it, and James Marsters, and all sorts of crazy people who were like, okay, Michael Jai White, Kelly Brook. It looks pretty good. Some of the episodes are okay, but I just got to say this is not great. The Missing is on Blu-ray. This is the Starz series. Starz is getting off to a bit of a slow start regarding its original stuff. They certainly can't hold a candle to Netflix or HBO or Showtime. It's all about this guy who is this kid who disappears while he's on holiday in France. And, of course, it takes like 10 years to find the kid, or maybe they don't. Not going to tell you. And it's all called The Missing. Dean Martin Celebrity Roast. I have to say that I did get the Wade. Actually, I don't want to admit this, but Wade got for me the box set of Dean Martin Celebrity Roast. This beautiful box set. I had Phil Klein, our friend Phil Klein, come over to watch one of them. Dud.
Really?
So not funny. Horrible. Just horrible.
You remember them better than they really were.
Yes. I thought they were just hilarious, but they're duds. Yeah. Anyway, we have Dean Martin Celebrity Roast, Stingers and Zingers, featuring Michael Landon, Valerie Harper, Joe Namath, Red Fox, a lot of good comics, and then the single DVD Dean Martin Celebrity Roast, including sports heroes Mickey Mantle, Hank Aaron, Joe Garagiola, and Willie Mays, Walker Texas Ranger. This is one of his Walker Texas Ranger movies. This is only at Walmart, which is to say that if you go to Walmart, you probably like Walker Texas Ranger. The Jerry Anderson collection. We talked about Jerry Anderson a couple weeks ago.
Timeless is releasing all of these now anew since A&E lost the licenses.
This one is
Joe 90.
This is Joe 90. It's about a scientist who creates this machine that can it can transfer knowledge from one person to another. So what happens there?
Such a weird show.
Exactly.
This is one of the ones that doesn't really work very well.
Another Hallmark thing we got going on, Mom's Day Away. Did I watch Mom's Day Away? Hell no. Because I took a look at it and said, I'm not going to like it, but I'll let you know it's around. Mom's Day Away from the Hallmark Channel. Little House on the Prairie, Season 5. If you're a completist, go for Season 5. If you're not, there's no reason to start at Season 5. Although I have to say, they do a good job with the extras.
It's shocking that they're putting these out on Blu-ray. It really is. I wouldn't have thought the Little House on the Prairie crowd would be Blu-ray fans. But so many other shows that should be on the list ahead of them, but whatever.
Just release the whole thing. Just release the whole series, for Christ's sake. Very controversial film, Whitney. This is directed by Angela Bassett. This stars Yaya DaCosta as Whitney Houston, the late Whitney Houston. You know, this film wasn't actually terrible. Because it was on Lifetime and because it was Whitney, everybody just figured, oh, this is going to be just a campy free-for-all. But when they decided to, hire Angela Bassett to direct it, you're like, well, okay, this might be a thing. You never know. And it really is one of the better Lifetime cheeseball movies. In fact, it's kind of less cheeseball than the normal ones, mainly because of Angela Bassett.
Will she get more directing work?
Absolutely.
Good.
Well, I mean, she won't because she's a woman and she's African-American and it's movies. But that's the tragedy of it. But what are you going to do? King of the Hill, complete 9th and 10th season. I was never a big fan of the show. This is on DVD, not Blu-ray, from Olive Films. And, of course, Olive is taking over. It's funny, like Fox, we talked about last week how they discontinued The Simpsons.
But at least they're letting someone else mine this now. They're not going to do that with The Simpsons.
Correct.
Yeah.
So King of the Hill seasons 9 and 10, never a fan, but people do love it. So
I like it. My wife, I never liked it originally, but my wife just couldn't get enough of it, and so now we watch them on a regular basis.
Because you like bad comedy.
I guess so. All right. Well, that is it for this week. Mark, are you looking forward to the Avengers?
I am. Yeah. I am looking forward to
it.
The first one, I think that it was a very difficult assignment. Joss Whedon did pretty much about as good a job as you could possibly do. You had to hand it to him. He had a lot of money to juggle. He had a lot of very nervous shareholders and executives. He had all sorts of A-list stars he had to juggle.
What do you think about the Russos taking over for the next two films?
Interesting,
right?
Marvel, they do not commit to directors long term like that. But I have to say that second Captain America film,
Winter Soldier, was really solid.
It was good.
It was really solid.
Totally good.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. All right. With that, we are done. See you next week.